Excellent. So we're starting AMH series. We will have a maybe 5-part live stream on AMH. We will cover everything about AMH. So AMH, the physiology, which is the role of AMH in female fertility. So, and we will be covering AMH test, and we will be covering also usage of AMH in fertility screening, fertility treatment, in egg freezing, embryo freezing, and IVF. So whole week we will dedicate on AMH. Then after that we will cover AFC, which is antral follicle count. So these two tests will give you very good understanding about your egg reserve. That's very critical. So then we will be accepting lots of questions on egg reserve, AMH and AFC, how you manage low AMH, high AMH, normal AMH. Okay, so yes, we can start.
Amazing. So Dr. Asti, my first question is, could you please describe what AMH is?
Okay, so anti-Mullerian hormone is a hormone which is produced from growing follicles on the ovaries which contain egg. So on your ovaries, you have thousands of sleeping eggs. You have 3 different types of eggs any given time on your ovaries. Biggest number of eggs you have in your ovaries, they're sleeping eggs, which are not visible. You can only see them under microscope. Then you have a second type of eggs, they're growing follicles with egg inside. We call them preantral and antral follicles. And antral follicles become visible on ultrasound scan. Why? Because these follicles contain fluid inside, and you can see the small fluid-filled sacs on your ovaries. So, and we call them antral follicles. When you count these follicles you have on your ovaries, we call antral follicle count. So those preantral and antral follicles produce AMH hormone. And then you have a third type of follicles. These are activated dominant follicles, which are going to ovulate and release the egg. You have 3 different types of follicles. You have thousands of sleeping eggs. They are resting, sleeping follicles with the egg inside. And then activated follicles. So they have 3 months of journey. Towards the end of those 3 months, they become visible. And just they become visible, start producing AMH hormone from the surface of that follicle, which contains egg inside. And once they become visible also in preantral stage, they start producing AMH hormone, which we can detect in your blood. Then third type of follicles are ovulating follicles. So the AMH hormone is a hormone which is produced from growing preantral and antral and ovulating follicles.
Thank you, Dr. Asti. And what is the role of AMH in female fertility?
Okay, so AMH is the most central female fertility hormone. Like if you imagine whole female fertility, all these hormones like estrogen, progesterone, FSH, LH, eggs, follicles, everything, if you look at as orchestra, the AMH is a conductor. AMH is a hormone which calls the shots, which tells everyone what they should be doing. Why? Because it just sits in the central point of ovarian function. Ovarian function has got 2 roles, ovaries in female body. One is to release the eggs so that their genes will be passed to the next generation, which is a fertility. Second is to produce female hormones like estrogen and progesterone. That's necessary for female health, for your skin, for your nervous system, for your whole body. You have got estrogen receptors, and those estrogen receptors are necessary for your health. So both of these roles are controlled by AMH hormone. That's most central hormone in female fertility. So the role of AMH, I'll explain. Like we said, any given time, female of reproductive age have 3 different type of eggs in the ovaries. Biggest part of eggs are sleeping eggs. We call them primordial follicles. Second one is preantral and antral follicles. These are growing follicles with egg. Each follicle contains egg inside. Third one is ovulating activated dominant follicles. AMH has got two major roles in female fertility. First role of AMH is to preserve your fertility so that you do not run out of your egg reserve quickly. Yeah, so this is the first role. And the second role of AMH is to ensure only one follicle you ovulate every month. Because any given time on your ovaries, you may have 15, 20 antral follicles. If you have PCOS, you may have 70, 80, 100 antral follicles. But AMH ensures only one of them gets ovulated so that you don't have twins and triplets, multiple babies in 1 month. AMH makes sure only one gets through and ovulate. So AMH is suppressant hormone. So suppressant hormone means it just slows everything down. So I tell you how AMH achieves this role. Okay, so in your ovaries, what we call is egg reserve. Egg reserve means that you have thousands and thousands of sleeping eggs which were created before you were even born. So now, if you don't have AMH, you run out of all this egg reserve. You just keep activating uncontrollably and you suddenly run out when you're a child. AMH has to ensure these eggs were created when you're in mom's tummy will last until you are 50 in average, until you are menopausal. This is AMH's role to ensure that when you're ready to have kids, let us say after the age of 20 until the age of 45 or 47, you release these eggs in controlled fashion. You activate these eggs in controlled fashion. So that's a hormone which we call inhibitor. It's like stopgate. So what happens is, let us say if you are born with a very low egg reserve, if you're going to have an early menopause or diminished egg reserve when you're older, so you are born with a very little number of egg reserve. So which means when you're ready to have kids, on your ovaries you have thousands of sleeping eggs. They're not visible. They're surrounded with the cells which in future will start producing with AMH hormone. So if you're born with an average number of eggs, during your fertility life, let us say your 20s, 30s, you have tens of thousands of eggs. If you are born with a very high egg reserve, like in women with PCOS, they are born with hundreds and thousands of eggs. They have got millions of eggs in their ovaries when they were born. And when they come to the fertility age, 20, 30, they have hundreds of thousands of eggs in their ovaries. Yeah, so then what happens is these eggs are in a sleeping state. Each egg has got genetic timer, which was set even before born. So there is an order for activation of your eggs. Let us say you got 20,000 eggs on your ovaries. When your age is 30, for example, each of these 20,000 eggs have got timer. And this timer is activated or deactivated by AMH hormone. So what happens is these eggs, or like tens of thousands of eggs, your age of, let us say you have average egg reserve, your age is 35. You have 20,000 sleeping eggs on your ovaries which you cannot see. Then invisible. Without the microscope, you can't see them. So they sit there. Every day you start activating eggs because AMH is ensuring there's supply of eggs when you have intercourse so that you get pregnant in your fertile age. So you keep activating eggs every day. Approximately, you activate one egg every hour. If you are born with average egg reserve, because women with average egg reserve are born with 500,000 eggs. So by the age of 50, they run out. So which means you spend 500,000 eggs within 50 years. So which means you spend approximately how many? Like each year you spend like 10,000 eggs. Yeah, each month you spend more than 1,000 eggs, approximately 1,000 eggs. So a lot of these eggs do not become visible. They just get activated before they become visible, which is preantral follicles. They get deactivated. Why? Because they do not have a capacity to become healthy egg. They have a lot of errors, and still your body is selecting healthiest eggs. Just imagine your ovaries, like eggs, are like pipeline. In the pipeline, you have got thousands of sleeping eggs, and they're getting activated. So they start traveling through, and next 3 months they should become large. A lot of them don't make it. They don't become visible. It is just disappearing. Then some of them become preantral follicles and they start producing AMH hormone, which you can detect in your blood. Then healthy ones get next stage, which become antral follicles, which we can actually see on ultrasound scan. We call antral follicle count. AFC is antral follicles. So those antral follicles also produce AMH, and then they keep going. And if you have a lot of sleeping eggs, you activate a lot of sleeping eggs, and you have a lot of antral follicles in the pipeline, and a lot of preantral and antral follicles produce a lot of AMH locally on your ovaries, and some of them goes to the blood, and that's a stop signal to sleeping eggs. Okay, so they essentially send, like conductor, send us a message back to ovary, sleeping eggs, say, look, we got plenty of eggs here already. We got like 20 antral follicles sitting, producing 20 picomoles of AMH. We don't need you to activate. You stay asleep. We don't need like here like thousands of eggs going into ovary at once. So they send a signal back saying, just stay asleep. We got the control here. So if your antral follicles drops on your ovary, let us say you got 20 antral follicles, it's signal to sleeping eggs. Slow down. We got enough eggs here. So if your antral follicle number drops, your AMH drops, mainly in the ovary. We're just listening to the signal by doing blood test and scan. That drop is a signal to the sleeping eggs. Say, look, we are running out of eggs, antral follicles or eggs in ovaries. You need to wake up now, get into the system, so that after 3 months you will be ready to ovulate and give this lady baby. Yeah, so that's internal signal. This crosstalk is going on, and that's conducted by AMH. That's central hormone. If you remove the AMH, if you deactivate AMH gene or receptor, suddenly that is a first role of AMH, is to send the signal to sleeping eggs to not to get activated unless this antral follicle number drops. So this is why in women with who's running out of egg reserve, they have very little antral follicles, 3, 4, 5, 6 antral follicles. If you measure their AMH, is only 1 or 2. Yeah, so which means they're producing less AMH. And then whatever left on the ovaries, they don't have many follicles left, and that encourages, say, look, we're here running out of eggs, and we need an egg which ovulates, which means get active, and they keep pushing whatever eggs left into the system. So AMH's first role is to preserve your fertility, so that your eggs last until you are menopausal. Yeah, so that's the first role. So this inhibitor hormone. And the second role of AMH is, let us say now you got 20 follicles on your ovaries, 10 on the right ovary, 10 on the left ovary. When you do antral follicle count, sonographer says, oh, good, so you have good egg reserve. Your AFC is 20, which is good egg reserve. So when you check your AMH, you have got 20 picomoles or 15 picomoles of AMH. Okay, that's good. If you didn't have AMH, all of those 20 eggs would ovulate. You would release 20 eggs. You had a multiple pregnancy. Yeah. So in humans, we want singleton pregnancies. Occasionally, twin pregnancies happen because the human's not designed to carry like 5, 6 babies at once. That's the role of AMH. It ensures out of 20 follicles, 1 gets through and ovulates. That's the healthiest one. Generally, not only the healthiest one, but this is the one which is the largest, which is close to 9-10 millimeters, and is a healthiest. Why it's healthiest? Because healthiest follicle produces healthy level of hormones to interact with the ovarian system. So, and then it lets that follicle to go through and keeps all the follicles suppressed. So here the barrier between AMH and FSH hormone. FSH is produced from the pituitary gland. So FSH, let us say your AMH is high. When you have a PCOS, you have like 70 antral follicles. When your AMH is high, so one of the 70 follicles makes through. and ovulate. Or if your FSH is not high in PCOS, you do not ovulate. Why? Because this AMH is suppressing. So then all the follicles don't ovulate. What happens to all the 69 follicles? Yeah, these 69 follicles disappear. You lose them. It's normal. Yeah. So what happens? It's called atresia. So then these 69 follicles don't disappear all at once. They gradually get replaced by new antral follicles growing. That's also a role of AMH. So AMH is a conductor. So it sits in the middle, tells sleeping eggs saying you stay asleep, and tells sleeping eggs now you need to wake up and go into the system, and I need to see you in 3 months. It tells also activated follicles ready for ovulation, like you have 20 follicles, they want to ovulate, yeah, and release the egg. They're competing with each other to release the egg. AMH tells I will select one follicle, and then others you can't ovulate and you disappear. And this is a slow process, and that's a continuous process. This is why it doesn't matter when you measure your AMH, first day of menstrual cycle, middle of menstrual cycle, end of menstrual cycle, because this is a continuous process. Nothing can stop. Pregnancy cannot stop, contraception cannot stop, IVF cannot stop, egg freezing cannot stop. This starts, this secondary activation starts once you start having menstrual period at the age of 14, 15, then stops when you run out of egg reserve at the age of menopause. 50 average is 50, 52 average. So the role of AMH on your ovaries or your fertility is two roles. One is to ensure that you have orderly activation of sleeping eggs so that you do not run out of egg reserve before you reach menopause, and the second is to ensure that you produce only one follicle, one egg every month. So this has got two roles.
Thank you so much, Dr. Asti, for explaining the role of AMH in female fertility, and also explaining how when women are born, we do have a higher AMH, and as we get older, it does get lower. Could you please explain why women do have different levels of AMH?
Yes, so I will just touch on why the levels are different. Yeah, when you're younger, you have got like children, yeah, female children have very high AMH. If you measure children, the AMH is like 150 normally, yeah, very high, 100, but they do not have of course they don't ovulate. They don't have many even follicles on their ovaries. The ovaries very small, but the AMH is high. Why? Because this AMH is being produced from activated follicles, eggs in the ovaries, and that's being produced from pre-antral follicles. They even before the sac is formed, they keep producing AMH. Because children, of course, have a very high egg reserve. Because let us say if you're born with 1 million eggs, so by the time you reach maybe age of like 30, you may have only like 100,000 left. So 900,000 eggs you lost when you were a child and during teenage years. And those eggs value you're losing, they're producing AMH hormone. Before even they got secondary active, the two activation happens in eggs. Primary activation is when sleeping egg, it wakes up. And it takes 3 months to get to the secondary activation. Secondary activation means once that egg becomes preantral and antral follicle and ready for ovulation. Yeah. So in children, secondary activation doesn't happen. Why? Because pituitary hormone will not be producing FSH and LH hormone in pulsatile fashion. So, and also there's a programmed internal mechanism where these follicles do not become visible, but they do produce AMH. This is why when you measure AMH in children, it's very high, and when you measure AMH in teenage girls, it's very high. When you measure AMH in early 20s, it is high. So even in patients who's going to have a early menopause or diminished egg reserve, they always had a very high AMH. But they were not aware at the time. So let us say when you measure 20 is very high, then it keeps dropping and dropping. Why? Because you have a lesser number of sleeping eggs, and you're activating less number of eggs, and less AMH is being produced from pre-antral and antral follicles. Then as you get older and older, it drops and drops, and it reaches zero, which means it's not detectable on the blood, but still there's AMH being produced from some antral follicle. This way, when you measure in AMH in women with diminished egg reserve, the AMH may be 0.6 picomoliters, but they're still ovulating and they're still fertile. They still can have kids. And when you do antral follicle count on this group of women, you can see like 5, 6, 7 follicles, and they keep ovulating, and that AMH is actually being produced within the ovary, but it's not high enough. It's not going into the bloodstream. A very tiny amount is going into bloodstream, but our test's not sensitive enough to pick up. So this is here you have got like a time period, maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even longer. In some women, their AMH can be 0, but they're still fertile. They're releasing eggs. They can get pregnant, and which means that's the time they have to really utilize it to maximum to get pregnant. This is the reason why we recommend them not to ignore when they have such a low AMH, because eventually then follicle number drops in such a level, then you have a perimenopause. Perimenopause means still you have 3-4 follicles. You do not ovulate every month. You ovulate every 3-4 months, which means you have a period every 3-4 months. Then periods become longer and longer and longer, then stop, which means menopause. Menopause means if you don't have a period for whole year, and when AMH is 0, and when FSH is high, that's menopause. So which means you cannot reverse that. Yeah, so yes, AMH is very high when you're young. Everyone had high AMH when they were younger, and then it's lower when you're older. Then once you reach menopause, it is AMH 0. All women who had menopause, the AMH is 0. Yeah, so yes, what was your question again, Gabi? So I got this.
No, that's fine. The second question to that part was, why do women have different AMH levels?
Very good question. So women have a different AMH levels because they were born with a different amount of eggs on the ovaries. Yeah. So like it is parameter of the body. Like let us say some people taller than others. Some people have a very tall height. Maybe their height is 190. Yeah. Some people have average height. Maybe their height is 175. And some people have short stature, which means their height may be 150. So we don't say this person is sick and their height is. AMH egg reserve is like this. Some women are born with their feature in their ovaries, in the egg reserve. It's feature that they were born with lots of eggs. Women with PCOS are born with lots of eggs. They were born with 2, 3, 4 million eggs in the ovaries. Women with who is going to have early menopause or premature ovarian insufficiency and going to have a fertility problem if they start family late are born with a low number of eggs. They are born maybe only 100,000 eggs or 200,000, and by the time they reach 30, they may run out of eggs. Some women unfortunately run out of egg reserve before the age of 25. They are born with very little number of eggs. So, which means they had a high AMH when they were younger, and they had the normal ovarian function. And if they delay, they run out of egg reserve, and they can have fertility problems. So, and yeah, so women, when you measure different AMH, different antral follicle count, that means these women were born with different number of eggs. And this is why the AMH is different, antral follicle is different. That's why the egg reserve are different. This is why the fertility plans have to be different. If you have 10 classmates, yeah, so and then they're meeting at the age of 30 and they say, let us check our AMH, yeah. So before they check their AMH, these 10 classmates, the same age, which I mean the same age, at the age of 30, they assume we have same fertility. Why? Because our age is the same. But if you check the AMH, out of 10, maybe like 2 of them have a PCOS, which means they have very high egg reserve, and 2 of them have a very low egg reserve. The AMH maybe only is like 4 or 5, and remaining 6 have average egg reserve. and you give 3 different advice to this different group. So for patients with PCOS, I said, don't worry, your egg reserve is good. Even after like 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, you can try to have kids, and you shouldn't have much problem, provided you don't have any other fertility problems, and your partner doesn't have any other fertility problems. But in women with a low egg reserve, say, look, your AMH is only 3-4, and within 3-4 years, you have to ensure you complete your family. If you want to have 3 kids, you should start now. If you're in relationship with a male partner, and complete your family within 5 years, have 3 kids. If you conceive naturally, excellent, do it. If not, then you need to have IVF. Or if you can't have kids, you need to preserve your eggs by egg freezing or embryo freezing using donor sperm if you're not in relationship, or embryo freezing using your partner's sperm. If you trust your partner will be happy to use those embryos, give you consent, and you're sure that you will be in relationship when you're ready to have kids. This is why just doing simple AMH tests, not only once, maybe twice, and maybe doing IFC as well. Yeah, so you do AMH twice, and you do AFC, and after 1 or 2 AFC, 1 or 2 AMH, you can tell who has a truly low egg reserve. Yeah, so this group of women at risk, if they ignore, they can have a lot of fertility problems. And this is the group of women who actually normally need donor eggs when they already have kids, because they already run out of egg reserve. And this is why you should not ignore. You should not say AMH is rubbish test. Don't trust. It doesn't tell you anything about your fertility. No, it's misinformation. Yeah, so this is information given by doctors or influencers who do not actually understand the role of AMH. AMH is not, we're not saying AMH is a fertility hormone. AMH is one of the fertility tests. Semen analysis is a fertility test. AMH is a fertility test. High gauze is fertility test. So pelvic ultrasound is fertility test. There's a lot, because fertility is not single disease. There's multifactorial. There's lots and lots of like 20, 30, 50 causes, things can cause fertility. AMH is one of them, and it's the most important one. Why? Because it tells egg reserve. If you have a low egg reserve, your fertility drops. If you do not have egg reserve, you cannot have genetic biological child. So this is why you should not ignore AMH. You should take as a part of one of the tests you do to understand your fertility. If you have to do any test, you should do one test, which is AMH. So then you should do other tests if you're actively trying. If you're not actively trying, you shouldn't do high gauze. Yeah, if you shouldn't do any other fertility test generally. But even if you're not trying, you should do AMH. Why? Because it predicts your future fertility. So whether you're going to produce eggs in 5 years or 10 years, and it is the most informative test. 2 things is most informative when it comes to fertility planning. We're not talking about fertility treatment. We're talking about fertility planning. It's a different thing. Fertility planning means any given time you're planning your future fertility. You are planning when you're ready, when you're going to have kids, and how many kids you're going to have, and how you're going to have the kids. Yeah, with your partner, or with IVF, or with donor sperm. That's a fertility planning. You need to know only 2 pieces of information for fertility planning. Your age now, and age when you want to have kids, and AMH levels. Yeah, maybe repeat it twice, because we'll discuss later. AMH fluctuates, goes up and down by 30%. If you do twice, you have a good idea about your AMHs, and maybe you can also do pelvic ultrasound scan to understand if you have any ovarian or uterine pathology. That's the 3rd test you can consider. So this is why AMH you cannot just dismiss, you cannot just ignore. That is a hormone produced from your growing follicles. That's a reflection of your egg reserve. It's like how much of time you have. Okay, I'll explain in very simple terms. Yeah, let us say you have a car. Yeah, your car is fully functioning. Yeah, doesn't have any problems. But you're running out of petrol, and if you run out of petrol, doesn't matter how functional your car is, you cannot get to your destination. You stop. So AMH is an indicator of your, like, how much petrol you have, yeah, in your fertility, how much reserve, how much fuel you have left. If this indicator, we shouldn't blame AMH. AMH is just indicator of how much of sleeping eggs you left. If you run out of egg reserve, doesn't matter how fit, how healthy, how much sports you do, how much of diet you are doing, it doesn't matter. That means you run out of fuel. So this is why there's a lot of misinformation. The reason we're doing this live streams, Gabi, is I can see a lot of misinformation, a lot of misunderstanding, including by fertility specialists. They do not really understand the role of AMH. Oh, AMH is not, it doesn't tell anything about your fertility. No. AMH is egg reserve test. It tells how much of egg reserve you have got, and that helps you to plan your fertility and seek help if you have to during right time. Yeah, so this why it is very important for whole public, including medical professionals, to understand the role of AMH, including role of AFC. So this is why we're doing this live stream.
Thank you, Dr. Asti. My final question for the live stream this morning is, are there any other factors that impact AMH levels? Do any other elements impact the AMH?
Very good question. So AMH can naturally fluctuate. It can go up and down naturally. It's we call variation. Everything in nature, like temperature, outside weather, goes up and down. In your body, your blood pressure goes up and down. Your heart rate goes up and down. So every element on your blood goes, hormones go up and down. And like this AMH goes up and down. So we call variation, and that's average 30%. This is one of my research studies, which we did back in 2012. Which is published. And that average variation in AMH and AFC is 30%. 30% means your AMH is 10. If you repeat after 3 months or 3 weeks, then it's normal for this to be 8, or normal for this to be 11. Yeah, but they're saying same thing. If you're doing long-term planning, you should repeat AMH again. Next time, let us say 10, next time 12. They're saying, okay, you have less than average egg reserve. So you see 20% variation. So if you want to be precise, you add 10 plus 12 and divide by 2, which is 11. Yeah, so this is a variation. Same with AFC. AFC you measure once, it's 15, next time it's 18. That's normal variation. In some patients, you can have a larger variation. So this is why you need to repeat. If it's low, you need to repeat AMH every year, maybe even monitor. So with repeated AMH, you can have a more and more certainty about your egg reserve. And this is main, and also AMH can change if you're taking biotin, vitamin B7, and that can change AMH levels. You have to stop biotin maybe a week or so before you do AMH. So these are two things generally affect AMH levels.
Thank you so much, Dr. Asti. That does conclude our live stream this morning. Tomorrow we will continue part 2 of this live, where we will cover topics including AMH such as PCOS, diminished egg reserve, early menopause and menopause. So thank you so much to those that jumped on this morning. As always, the screen recording of this live will be published to Dr. Asti's TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. So thank you so much, and we will see you tomorrow for part 2.
Thanks, Gabi, for organizing this live stream, and thanks everyone for